players take their game to the next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Schmalz.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby.
Now here is your show and go team.
That was amazing. You can't get a better intro than that.
Sounds amazing. I love it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Show and Go. This is a baseball podcast to help and educate amateur players, coaches, parents, and basically anybody that's interested in the game of baseball. I am but 1/4 of this amazing Show and Go pie.
It's a pie.
It's a pie now.
I like that.
What kind of pie are we?
I am just but 1/4 of this
I like pecan.
pecan pie.
Pecan.
Is it pecan? We're in Nashville. So
I don't know.
Like I said, I am but 1/4. My name is Tim Dillard. I almost said Dim Tillard.
You could go by that.
That's at Dim Tillard.
My name is at Dim Tillard, and I have been a pitcher in professional baseball for the last 15 years. And to my left is current big leaguer and 2016 World Series MVP Ben Zobrist.
I almost forgot that you were the World Series MVP.
Don't you forget it.
All right, across from me, super elite. I've added super. I don't know if you noticed that.
I like that.
Super elite sports trainer, Josh Costello, a.k.a. J Money. And rounding out the pie is the head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, Ryan Schmalz. Coach, what's up, man?
What's up?
That's the lineup.
Smooth. I was watching the Sports Center the other day, and I saw a certain character that reminded me of you. His name's Tim as well. His last name's Kirkjian.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, you know what? We need a impression of Kirkjian because I know you've done it before. I've seen it on TV.
I've done it over 2 or 3, 7 times in my illustrious career.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to, you know, we're used to you interviewing and talking about other people. So how about we just interview you? So Tim.
Yeah.
Kirkjian.
Kirkjian.
What do you think of some of the new rule changes in baseball?
Don't mess with baseball. Call me a throwback vintage kind of guy.
That's pretty good.
No, it's not.
I like it.
I'm going to edit
So good. What are you
all
talking
that out.
about?
No, it's great.
If you would have said Chewbacca, I'd have been like, or something I can do. Or Harry Carey. Hi, everybody.
Dude, Tim Kirkjian doing Chewbacca.
I'm sitting here with co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon. Chewbacca, how are things going? I don't know what he's saying.
Can we do that for a whole episode? It's just impressions.
This
just for
episode's actually an
30
hour and a
or
half.
40 minutes. That'd be so
I'm going to
awesome.
reenact Star Wars. All right, for everybody.
Let's talk some baseball, I guess, huh?
Sounds good.
What do you got, Coach?
I think that it'd be fun to talk about communicating with players and coaches. Sometimes there's a huge gap between the players and the coach or coaches, and I think that can lead to a lot of problems. I think both for the coach and for the players. I know personally that I don't like that gap. To be too big, but I guess I'll just pose the question to you guys. Tell me, some of your experiences interacting with coaches, from a player's perspective, and what have you guys learned from some of those interactions?
Yeah, I'm going to start it off and say that I went first last time, so I nominate Ben.
Hey, but wait, we all played, right?
Yeah,
So, Jay Money, you want to start us off?
do it.
Played what?
Baseball.
No,
That's good, dude.
I think if you've played any baseball, you've had great moments with coaches and bad moments.
Yeah. My players have never had a bad moment with me ever. Oh,
You're
man.
a perfect communicator, aren't you?
Yeah, I've never struggled with this area. Ask my wife. Why is it so hard to talk to coaches?
That's a great question. I think for me at that age, I'm still learning. I mean, in college, I'm still learning how to communicate, period. Still am.
Get closer to the microphone. You can't.
Well,
Okay.
I think one of the reasons is when you're younger, you're taught to look at your coach as like the straight up authority figure, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever he says goes. You know, you just kind of like with your parents. The younger you are, the more you just have to listen to what they tell you to do. Don't ask why. Don't question. But as you get older, you get into high school, you start kind of questioning some of their, maybe before then, but you start questioning some of their moves, and you start questioning, well, why is this guy playing and that guy's not? And so you start having your opinion, but a lot of kids still at that point, they're not willing to talk to the coach about it that much.
That's the biggest thing. And, there's moments when I played in college ball where, I felt like I should be playing more over other guys, other teammates start saying the same thing, and then you hold it in and you don't have that talk with the head coach. And honestly, that's a great question, Ryan, because I don't know why I didn't have a sit down with them. That probably would have helped me. I think all you got to do is just ask the coach, hey, I just want to get something off my chest. And whether he changes anything or not, I think it would have been a huge release for me just to talk.
That is a great point. People just need to get it off their chest.
Yeah.
I would guess that maybe not you, probably, but maybe not. I mean, sometimes guys don't want to hear what the coach has to say. Maybe they're scared of, that reality that's coming down the pike, but as soon as you say something in opposition to that person, in a respectful way, you're going to feel better immediately. You may not like the answer, you may disagree with the answer, but you're going to feel a whole lot better.
Yeah. Hey, coach, how come I'm not playing? Well, you're terrible. Great, thanks. No, but it matters, right? Is a guy going to come up to you in the middle of the dugout during a game and say, "Hey, why am I not playing?" Is there a time and a place?
For sure, there's a proper time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, pretend we're your players, and then we need to come to you.
So when can we?
When can we? What, is your door always open? Yeah. Maybe I can't find your office. I don't know.
Game day is really a bad day to do this.
Yeah.
After a game, probably not the best time. Before the game, definitely not during the game. A time when that there's going to be sufficient time to sit down and talk about it. I think that's a big part of it right there. You want to catch your coach in a time when you're going to have his undivided attention. Give him a call, shoot him a text, an email or something, set up a time where you can block off 10, 15 minutes to, whatever it's going to take for you to sit down and have this conversation. I think that's the first thing right there is just having the time to do it, because if somebody comes up to me, after I post a lineup, a couple hours before a game, hey coach, I'm PO'd. Why am I not in there? What's going? No, I'm going to send that guy right back out the door. There's no chance we're having this conversation now. It's, but I think that might go without saying. But I think the timing's really important.
So after practice would be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
To bring that up and say, hey coach, do you have a few minutes? I just have something I want to ask you about or talk to you about.
Out of respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, be very respectful.
And this conversation is going to come to no surprise to any coach out there, just about. I mean, coaches have multiple conversations just like this every year, and so, it's going to be a whole lot harder starting that conversation, I think. But once you do, you're going to, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that conversation's a whole lot easier once it's already started. And again, you may not get the answer you want, but you're going to feel a whole lot better after that talk is over.
What if you have a talk once a week with the same guy? That's got to be.
That's probably.
I went to my coach in AAA this past season, and I just was talking about the shift. We do a shift, and I'm a sidearm right-handed pitcher, and so some of the places we played didn't jive with where I was giving up balls hit, and so I went in very respectfully. Had not gone. I've known him for like 4 years now, and had not gone into his office to talk to him about anything really baseball related for the most part. He was been in some of my videos on Twitter, but
that's at Dent.
Yeah. I felt like I built up the chance to be able to. He's going to hear me more because I have been silent and I've been observant and I was well thought. With my words and things like that. So when I came in, I think he heard me more than if I was in there all the time going, hey, I got a problem with this. Hey, I got a problem with this.
So you had a few silver bullets, essentially, that you were going to use, and that was one of them. It was like, hey, if I'm going to talk to him about something, I'm going to make sure it's really important and bring this up because it really matters to me.
Yeah, that was it. I had saved up my time where I could go, okay, This is it. This is my one thing I'm bringing up, and this is important to me. And he heard me, and we compromised on it. And
did anything change after you talked with him?
Yeah, the big thing was I wanted more double plays. As a sidearm guy, I give up a lot of ground balls, and I felt like if guys played in different positions for me, then I'd get more ground balls. And I even brought up facts and stats and all that. And I told him, I was like, it's been a month into the season. I've had one double play, and out of this many innings, my track record shows there should be more. And so after we compromised, within 2 months, I had 7 double plays.
Wow.
So,
that's huge.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's awesome because
I'm glad to be right. But he's got a lot. A coach has a lot to deal with, right?
I mean, they can't get everything.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like that. That's a great story.
Yeah, when the fact that you came to your manager and you had a lot of facts, you had information, you were well prepared for that conversation. That's huge. That's really important. And he may disagreed with everything you said, but I guarantee it meant a lot to him that you cared enough to do your homework, articulate the point you're trying to make in a clear way with evidence, or statistics or whatever. From one of the biggest reasons why I'm sure he saw your point, and listened to you because you cared enough to do your homework and show him a rational reason why, not just that you were mad.
Yeah. We text message.
Mm-hmm. So. Talk about the coach's perspective on that. Like, let's say a coach, when is it proper for a coach to communicate certain things to players versus other things? Because I think everybody's kind of seen coaches do the wrong thing and kind of yell at the player and try to communicate something on the field in the middle of something when it's not going to do any good, right? But
Right.
help coaches a little bit there in regard to timing.
Well, I think a lot of times coaches and probably me, well, for sure, me included, during a game, when you're mad, something goes wrong, it's almost insecurity that comes out, and it's almost like you're trying to save face by yelling at a kid and because it's a reflection on you as a coach. And I know I've been guilty of that for sure. It's easy to see a player make a mistake and feel like, well, I'm looking bad now because a player, did this or made this mistake. And so for a coach to communicate to a player in a negative way on the field like that, I think there's a time and a place for it, but it can't be for, in my opinion, I don't like doing that for physical mistakes. If a guy's not hustling or not playing hard, the communication is going to be a little bit firmer, a little bit more direct, to put it lightly. But, kids, everybody's going to make mistakes. Baseball's a game of failure, and there's going to be, all kinds of things that come up, and coaches are going to have opportunities to speak to those guys, in a way that's demeaning and kind of beats them down, or in a way that's constructive and helps them learn, a little bit through the process. And so I think that one of the biggest things I would tell young coaches in particular is, don't make it about you. Don't feel like it's making you look bad. Always try to communicate to a player in a way that's gonna build him up and make him learn something from that interaction.
Would you agree or disagree with this statement? When some things need to be said in the game because it can affect the next inning or the next at bat, and there's other things that can wait.
Yeah.
To not just after the game, but maybe the next day. That you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I hate coming off the field and having somebody grill me, especially if I'm out of the game. It does nothing. But if someone goes, hey, you're balking every single pitch, you're not coming set, I need to know that right away.
No doubt.
Come out to the mound and be
Yeah.
like, listen, the umpire hasn't seen this yet, but you're screwing up out here. You're not coming set. Oh, okay, thanks. And the guy
Yeah,
runs
and
off.
I've said this before on here that I want my players to be instinctive, and if I'm telling them to change everything, every play, and micromanaging them, then they're going to be thinking about the specific mechanical adjust or whatever that I'm telling them, instead of just playing the game hard and playing with their own instincts. And that's what practice is for. You got a chance to work on that stuff and correct those mistakes. And in a game, that's time to just go play and have fun, and be instinctive. So
Just so much about this, from what you've said so far, so much about this is about considering the moment, finding the right moment to say what needs to be said. Mm-hmm. And I think that takes a lot of the emotion out of the equation too. Because what people have a hard time with, like you said, is that there's some sort of defense mechanism or insecurity that happens in the moment of the game. Their emotions are high, and so things are said in those moments that it's not going to do anybody any good, and then it creates reaction from the other person, and it's just not healthy, right? So, there is a time and a place to get in somebody's grill about something. We all need that at times.
Yep.
But it's finding the right moment. And I think you got to check your motive, right? You got to check your motive on that. Even if you're a player trying to talk to another player. I've seen this before. It doesn't go over well if it doesn't come from the right motive. You know, when the motive is really right, it usually ends up, you know, coming out in a better way, right?
Yeah.
And it's just difficult if you try to do it in that very moment. You need to go back and be like, okay, what do I need to say to this guy?
Yeah, I've had to go back after the fact and apologize to players. You know, in the heat of the battle, emotions are high. I said something I didn't mean, and that's really hard for me to do. You know, I've had to go back the next day and say, man, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I was emotional. You know, I should have handled it the next day, slept on it, something like that. And timing is absolutely critical with regard to that.
I think, you know, and we all know this, when emotions are super high, it's always best to just to hold off. You know, a lot of times you need 24 hours because whether it's the coach or the player, you want to be able to be true to yourself, what you're feeling, but you want to get to a place where you can articulate it with your mind. So when the mind and the heart can match up together and it's not just all heart and raw emotion, then a lot of times, more than others, you're going to be able to come with a better, you know, solution after that.
Well, I think it comes out of love after that. It's like, hey, emotions aside, this is what I want for the team. This is what I want for you. I'm going to try to make you better. And I've had those conversations with coaches, and I respond better to that. The coaches that take me the next day and I come in and they essentially are grilling me like, hey, man, that was a dumb move. What are you thinking? You know, I'm paraphrasing for our audience edited. I have to sit there and go, yeah, that's a good point, because my emotions are down now and so is his. And so I know he's trying to make me better and he's trying to make sure that relationship is there. And I love it. The next day, man, you can tell me whatever you want. I'm in a better mindset. But in that moment, it's really hard for me to hear anything.
Yeah, coaches got to know their players. You know, you got to know, like, what kind of advice is going to motivate you, what kind of interaction is going to motivate Ben and Cost. It's all going to be different. You know, I think coaches, you know, it's a constant learning process. Trying to grasp that for a whole team is not an easy thing. You know, it's managing a lot of moving pieces. But for any coaches out there listening, I think that's really, really important, is learning. You know, those types of buttons to push for each individual guy.
I think if you're talking about when you get in these conversations finally, you know, when you're in the right frame of mind, one of the biggest struggles that happens in the miscommunication is a lack of trust and believing that the coach or the player, the person you're talking to doesn't have the best motive at heart. Like, they're all about themselves. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about the team. And that's where I think we have to check ourselves and try as best as we can, even if we don't, you know, it's really hard to believe this when you feel like you're seeing other things being played out on the field. But I think if we can try to believe the best about that other person, like, hey, his motive was, he was trying to make us all better, trying to make me better, trying to make them better. He just, you know, didn't go about it the right way. Then you can talk to him and just assume, like, hey, I know that this didn't come across very well. What did you really mean? You know, kind of try to clarify and assume the best about the other person. And coaches to players too, right? Assume that the player's doing the best they can. Maybe they just didn't understand or know the situation. It wasn't that they didn't care.
Yeah, and a lot of times the player, you know, especially young, well, not just younger guys, I'm sure all players are like this, that a little bit embarrassed probably is an emotion that they're going through. If they're not playing well, if they're not playing at all, there's an emotion of embarrassment that's really hard for any competitor to be able to handle, and that's going to manifest itself in several different ways. Everybody's going to handle that differently. Nobody wants to experience that, especially when you're, you know, everybody that plays is a competitor. You know, everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play well. The coach wants to win. And when things don't go right, just due to our competitive nature, you know, you got to step back a little bit, make that conscious choice. To your point, Ben, when you said that you have to assume the best out of that person, you know, that's a choice. You know, you got to step back and kind of let the emotions settle just a little bit and try to trust that person and realize they do have their best intentions in mind.
You can't not, if something goes down, if a coach says something to a player during a game or vice versa, I don't think you can just sweep it under the rug. It's been, in my experience, like, hey, maybe not do it that day, or maybe after a game it warrants an explanation from one side or the other. But laying it just, oh, okay, well, that'll just go away. It's always going to be there between you and that coach. And me being in the same organization for, you know, the last 16 years or whatever, I've seen the same coaches more than once. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know who your coach is going to be for the foreseeable future. You know, why burn a bridge? Why try to, you know, oust whatever relationship you could have. You need to build off of that. Maybe something negative did happen, but you talk about it, you heal it, and you move forward.
Why do you think some coaches come across as very just aloof and like they can't connect with their players, and then some are like super personal with their players and just have a great connection? Do you think it's a personality thing, or do you think that's just like really just?
I think it's a personality thing, number one, and I also think it's a way that they view their job. I think that there's different leadership styles out there, and kind of how you view your job as a coach or manager is going to dictate how you communicate with your players. If you're that domineering, ultra assertive personality, then and you view yourself in that way, then that's going to definitely show up in the way you treat your players, for sure.
I've had coaches or managers that don't have like the most outgoing personality, and so for them to come up and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" and try to make that conversation, to me goes a long way, because I'm like, I know this guy is not just bubbling over, wanting to know about what's going on in my life. So when a coach does that, and I know that about him, it actually means a lot more.
Brian, have you ever had a situation where a player has called you or texted you to have a conversation, where it was, a good move?
Or wrote a letter?
Oh, yeah.
Postcard.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a number of times a year, I'll have guys come up to me, and I would say 95% of the time they handle it in the right way, the appropriate way. They'll say, hey, they'll find the right time. They'll not be defensive or argumentative. They'll do it in a respectful way, I guess is the best way of putting it. They don't cross that boundary, but at the same time they get their point across, and I'm receptive of it. I'll hear them out. They don't always get their way. I wouldn't say the majority of the time that the outcome is what they want, but I guarantee they feel better about it, and I encourage it to. I encourage all my players, hey, if you have something you want to get off your chest, get it off your chest, because there's only one of me, there's 35 of you. You can't always wait for me to come to you. I'm dealing with a whole bunch of different guys, but
hold on, we're getting a call. Your phone's blowing up.
Yeah, I would definitely advise everybody, both players and coaches out there, just to be assertive with it. Don't be passive. Don't wait for
don't blow
the
up.
Circumstances to change.
Last game of your career.
Yeah, but definitely, if you have something that needs to be said as a player or a coach, make sure it's said.
I've had a manager come to me years ago, and I guess when it was that transition from, I guess I was a prospect at one time, between coming, being a prospect and then kind of, getting a more veteran type role. And he just wanted me to be, feel the heartbeat of the clubhouse. Hey, if there's something going on, I want you to let me know. I don't want you to gossip about these guys, but if there's an issue that's going on that I've overlooked or I don't see, somebody's keeping it from me, this is the kind of thing I need to know. And I know that maybe that goes in more of a leadership in the clubhouse thing, but to me that helped the communication between me and this guy, and then the clubhouse with this guy.
Mm-hmm. Those are the best. Those are the best kind of relationships I've had with coaches as well. Is the coach that can find their leaders and trust them, and and basically help give a little bit of clubhouse or team authority to some of those guys and say, hey, let me know what's going on, and I'll trust you with information.
Let me ask you this: how do you know? How do you make that decision when there's an issue that you feel like you could handle, or when you feel like there's something going on here? I need to bring it to the manager's attention. How do you make that determination?
Oh, if I had an issue, I would always talk to a teammate first with something they said. And then if I had something that I was questioning, I would go in and make it very general. Hey, look, why did you do this? It would be my question, not somebody else's question.
I think that's great advice.
But that is something as a team leader I have to take upon myself. Like, hey, if somebody else is asking this question and I agree with them, and something needs to be said, then I'm going to go ask it for myself. It's coming from me. Because I'm not going to throw anybody else under the bus in regard to what I want to question.
Never feels good.
No, I think you're right. I think if you can extinguish something right away before it gets worse. But you kind of have an ear to the ground, as it were, in the clubhouse to see what's going on. And if the manager knows, if people know that the manager puts you in that role, in that responsibility, I think what ends up happening is people end up coming to you to make that decision. Hey, listen, this happened. And I've had that. I have to go and tell them, like, hey, man, what's going on with this? And you kind of play aloof in a way, but at the same time, you're saving that teammate. You're saving a potential problem, all with a simple conversation.
The important thing is not that everyone talks to everybody about everything. That's not you don't want that as far as communication goes. The important thing is that communication happens about issues that are happening on the team. If there's a problem with the team and I know about it and the manager or coach doesn't, well, somehow I need to communicate that this is an issue that we need to address as a ball club without throwing anyone else under the bus. I'm not going to talk about any particular players. I'm not going to talk about, but if there's an issue like, hey, why did we have to, I don't know, do extra work on this particular day? You know, which we barely ever do extra work, so that's not even a good example in Chicago. But why would we do this? You know, if that question needs to be asked because everyone's complaining about it, well, I'm going to go ask it because I want to know, and then I can tell the other guys, hey, this is why we did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have 3 options, you know, whenever you're faced with something you're frustrated with or maybe disagree. You know, you could talk to the coach about it, which is the best option in the right way. You know, wait a little bit and then talk at the best time. You can tell others about it and complain, which that's just going to bring bad energy, which that's a no-go. Or you can just hold on to it till the perfect time to blow up on somebody. You know? Just hold on to it. Wait. Just hold on to it for like 60 days until that one moment that someone says one thing and you just blow up.
I think that is so much better than option 2. In all honesty, I mean, you don't want to.
I feel like you.
How do fights start?
As long as there's not physical violence.
Here? You have personal experience.
Sorry, I was
with this
getting a little emotional.
I think he's got something to share about this team.
Do you have something you want to get off your chest?
Go to the coach,
I just did. I would say it's usually the second two. You know, or tell others or hold on to it. That's what I've seen the most, and that's what I've done the most myself personally.
I want to bring up one more thing. If we're going to transition here, I want to bring up one more thing.
Okay.
I can't wait for this. This looks
I
really
saw the
important.
look in your face. I want to talk quickly about the idea of taking a coach's advice or not taking it, based on a mechanical thing, based on a way to look at the game.
I'm leaving.
Right? So there are some times where coaches think they have the answers to everything, but it's just one perspective on the game.
No.
Oh,
Coaches,
damn.
I don't know if a coach has ever been wrong. I've never seen it happen. I don't know. I've never seen this before, but
This is unbelievable.
this might be news to me.
Not even when you were in college.
Wow.
I can't find my keys.
Elliot Johnson was never wrong about anything.
Man. We're name dropping right now.
So my biggest
So what's
thing,
the question?
The question is, if a coach has advice for you as a player, he wants you to hit a certain way, do a certain thing a certain way, but you disagree with him in your heart. You're listening to him tell you you should do it like this, and you're like, no, that's not right. It doesn't work for me. Okay, which happens all the time in the game. What do? Do you listen to him? Do you communicate that to him in the moment? Do you just try it, what he's having you do or not? Or how do you think about that communication?
All 3 of you guys are looking directly at me right now. Okay, if you're a player, you communicate, in my opinion, you communicate openly about that. What you don't do is be respectful, but then go do it your own way, because that's just going to lead to frustration.
So then,
so
how do you communicate that?
Well,
though,
you
in
tell
the
a
moment?
coach, you say, look, I respect what you say. I respect what you're saying, but just please hear me out. You know, let me tell you why I want to do it this way. Let me explain to you why I've been successful doing it this way. Let me express to you how I feel. Tim talked a little bit, earlier about, kind of having some, statistical stuff. I'm not saying you got to go back and get a bunch of stats for making a hitting adjustment, but you have to have some rationale behind what you're saying. You say, look, because a coach doesn't know how you feel. That's the thing. As a player, a coach can't feel what you feel. He can see what your body's doing, but he can't feel what you feel. And so that's the piece of information you have to take to the coach and say, look, I totally understand what you're saying. I understand why you're saying it, but let me tell you how I feel when I do it. And I don't think I can be successful feeling this way. And so maybe together you can come to some resolution in spite of that.
Or you just do your own thing.
I mean, no, that's really, really good stuff, I think. I think it's really important to remember if you're a player or a coach. And as a player, coming from a player, I've the perspective at times in the past I've taken is, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to go do my own thing.
I guarantee it led to frustration, right? What good comes of that?
And I'll say this, in my latter years, as I've started to understand, if I actually want to make the team better, I have to share my perspective with the coach. Because he's not going to get any better as a coach if I don't share how I feel and how that particular thing he's trying to coach me on isn't helping or is
If you don't do that, it becomes you against him. Who's going to win this struggle between doing it your way or doing it his way?
But I think a player needs to keep an open mind. You can't just sit there and attack every little thing. I'm not saying this
same thing with the coach.
Player is. Yeah.
Same thing with the coach.
I'll use an example. I am the most hard-headed. You guys know me. I'm hard-headed as... You can't teach me anything. Go for it. You can't.
But you have a very soft beard.
2 really great points. So my example came in 2013. I'm in Mexico, and the team brought in a sidearm specialty guy, a right-handed sidearm guy. Chilo. You've heard this story. Chilo. Right? And so this guy, I meet him. He's about 6'6", 6'5".
What?
Yeah, he's tall. And he weighed about 150 pounds. So he's wow. Hey, look at coat
That's
hanger.
not how I pictured him.
What?
Yeah.
No,
I had an image in my mind, and that was not even close to what it is.
He had a dark black mustache, and he had a cigarette in it, and he had a dip in his lip, which, look at studies, man. That's
my man
double
loves
cancer.
tobacco.
Yeah, big tobacco guy. And I'm playing catch with this guy, and I was just in the big leagues like 6, 7, 8 months before this, and this guy is telling me, "Hey, man, throw your sinker." And I'm like, here's my sinker. And I threw it. I'm like, what do you got on that? He's like, no, throw your sinker. And I threw it again. And he's like, no, throw your sinker. And I'm like, I'm about to rip the grass out of the ground. I'm so mad right now. I'm like, dude, I was just in the big leagues not long ago. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, no, let me show you. And he showed me a grip on a pitch. And I started throwing it. And it was amazing. And I knew right then and there that maybe I'd been doing that my entire life. Where anytime anyone tried to say anything,
Dang.
I would battle back.
Dang.
And it was a humbling experience.
Did you call your parents immediately?
No, I'm tearing up again. Love you, Dad. No, I mean, maybe I did. I had a calling card. Maybe I didn't have a good Mexico plan on my phone. Rang up a big bill. But I had to be coachable, right?
Yeah.
I had to be coachable. And it took my 13th season or 12th season or whatever to actually realize that about myself.
Yeah, that goes both ways. I think players and coaches have to be open to growing and finding a new way sometimes.
Yeah.
Hearing new things. But also, as a player, as you start to know what works for you and what doesn't and how your body feels, I think you have to be a little bit stubborn. All the best are a little bit stubborn, but they can still be coached.
Yep.
Stubborn.
All right.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
Final.
That was my final thought. Chilo.
Oh.
And I still throw
That's
the
good.
pitch. I still throw it. It's a pretty good pitch. Anybody listening that's grounded out on it.
You ever broke any
Wear
bats
it.
with Chilo?
Chilo's not a broken bat pitch per se.
It's a double play pitch.
I'm kind of behind in the count, don't know what to do. It looks really good to hit, and you're probably going to stick it on the ground.
Double play.
Double play.
Awesome.
Kasi?
Yeah, I think, awareness of yourself, awareness of the other person is going to help you with communication because everyone's going to receive, information differently. I think something that is, for everyone is really the time. That just goes for anyone, no matter what their personality is. You just got to understand the temperature of the situation and the temperature of yourself, just so that when you do share and communicate, it's you're able to articulate it. That's the biggest thing, because then you're heard. If you know that you're at least heard, you're going to earn some respect for that person, which is going to turn into trust, which can be a snowball of just better things for the future and better conversations that will be easier. I think for a lot of guys, it's not easy, with communicating things, and it's usually telling someone else about it, complaining, or holding on to it for that moment in time when you decide to blow up. That's never a good thing.
I enjoyed that blow up by the way a while ago.
Earlier.
Bro, you snapped.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm
You
still
get that crazy
listen,
look in your eye,
yeah,
man.
I'm still working on it.
Listen, I've seen him snap, and that
just
was
ask
not
him.
a snap, buddy. He
Yeah,
can
that
snap.
was a warm up snap.
What you got, Zoe?
All right. My big thing I want to leave people with is ask good questions to coaches. Draw out their knowledge and their wisdom, even if you don't think they have a lot. Like, if you ask a good question, any coach would love to give you the answer that they have. And that doesn't mean you take it and you have to, like, implement it into your game right away, but you at least take the perspective, you learn from the perspective, you keep asking the same question, and you see if you can land on something for your career and something that works for you, because he's going to be able to look at the game a different way than you do. And that's not just your head coaches. That might be an assistant coach. That might be somebody else, your summer coach, or somebody else that you don't think that has. Ask good questions. That's one thing as far as communication. If that guy doesn't want to communicate with you, I guarantee you, if you ask him a good question, he'll start communicating.
Absolutely.
Boom. That's good.
I've had dozens of managers and coaches over the years. Some of the best times and some of the best things I've learned is just asking them to tell stories. My manager in Venezuela was Eddie Perez. This guy caught, how many Cy Young Award winners did he catch?
Yeah.
I mean, right? And been around baseball his entire life. And just asking him to tell stories, the stuff you can learn just by listening. And I think when it comes to like a specific moment for communication between a coach and a player, I think you have to realize that men in general are not good at communication, and that somebody has to kind of give in a little bit, you know, kind of put your pride aside and have a real conversation.
Yeah, I think that's good. You know, two things real quick. One is I would say to players out there, you know, especially if you're in a situation where you don't like your role, you know, before you talk to your coach about it, you need to show him that you don't, you know, that you should be in the lineup. You know, don't tell him, show him. You know, and a lot of times guys just want to, you know, we talked about complaining, and, you know, they just kind of want to be heard, but are you really putting in the work? You know, are your actions speaking louder than your words? I think that's really, really important for players to understand. And if you're not showing your coach that you want to be in the lineup, don't even go talk to him, because it's not gonna go well. It's not gonna be worth it. You need to look at yourself in the mirror first before you start, you know, pointing your finger at somebody else. And the next thing I would say is that this is really important, you know, I think to us, is because communication is so important in life. You know, I mean, you know, 3 of the 4 of us are married. You know, I think that in a marriage, communication is really important. Cost is running a business. I mean, I'm sure, you know, when you're running a business, communication is one of the most important things you do, you know, and when there's ever dysfunction in something, a lot of times it's because the communication's bad, you know. So I think that
That's a good point.
just learning these skills in general, I think is critical to help you in more than just baseball. So that's what I got.
Awesome.
Thanks, Coach. Well, that does it for this episode of Show and Go. If you have any questions or comments, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And I'd like to thank the boys of the TheoCast podcast for letting us use their wonderful equipment and setup today and every day until they decide that we can't come back. On behalf of myself, Zoe, J Money, and Coach, thanks for listening, and join us next time on The Show and Go. Honestly, I don't even like my own voice. Is that weird?